Well, I hope that you're all settled into 2018 now that you've had a couple weeks to loathe yourself for putting the wrong year on absolutely everything. Despite being young, 2018 is already notable for one significant anniversary. It's been 100 years since Earth's last truly global pandemic. Starting in 1918, the Spanish flu swept the globe and infected 500 million people. Between 50 and 100 million of those did not live through it, which was between 3 and 5% of the world population at the time. Soldiers fighting in the First World War are believed to have been the primary mode of spreading the flu around the world. A century later, we still haven't seen anything like it. There have been outbreaks of various afflictions, but nothing that even comes close to that kind of attrition. Yet, a pandemic still shows up on virtually all lists of things that are most likely to wipe humanity out someday. Authors on this subject frequently quote a 2006 poll in which 90% of epidemiologists allegedly feared a pandemic that would kill more than 100 million people within the next 100 years. But it turns out that poll never actually happened. They're still concerned, though. Many thought that the 2014 Ebola outbreak was going to be the big one, but it wasn't. It wasn't even close, really. So, if an incurable, highly contagious disease can't do it, should we even bother worrying? In a word, yes. Our world has all the hallmarks of a society that's just ripe for a pandemic. We have enormous population growth, especially in areas where sanitation, hygiene, and views toward modern medicine are underdeveloped. We have increased urbanization, which concentrates and accelerates any small outbreaks. We have much easier and more frequent global travel. Over 3 billion people fly every year, and any one of them might be transporting an affliction between countries or across oceans. Ebola is extremely lethal, but it's not actually that easy to transmit between people because it relies on a transfer of body fluids. That also makes it relatively easy to quarantine to avoid further spread. A truly devastating affliction would have to be airborne, like the H7N9 virus that's currently simmering in rural China. According to the American Center for Disease Control, H7N9 is currently the greatest pandemic threat in the world. This influenza A virus is airborne, 37% lethal, and still doesn't have a vaccine that's been verified completely effective. H7N9 originated in chickens and made its way to humans, mutating along the way, but it still has its own Achilles heel. Despite being an airborne virus, it does not transmit between humans very efficiently, and it seems to do most of its damage to older people who were already unhealthy for other reasons. That's why the Spanish flu was so effective. It targeted young, healthy people who had the strength to continue living while the virus festered inside. By doing so, those people passed the virus around and continued the pandemic. Natural selection favors viruses that can infect a host but allow the host to remain alive and mobile to spread the infection around. That's another reason why Ebola will probably never be the global pandemic that many have long feared. It incapacitates the host completely, and when the host dies, the virus loses its ability to spread. Nature doesn't much care for that. The H5N1 bird flu virus caused several hundred deaths worldwide between 2003 and 2014. Soon after, researchers released data showing that 5 amino acids had to be replaced before the virus would become fully airborne and easily transferable between humans. In biological terms, that's a very short leap between a virus that kills hundreds and one that kills millions. Even worse, the modified H5N1 airborne virus propagated much more quickly than the version we saw in the wild. That strong selective advantage shows that nature is just aching for it to happen outside of a lab. And now we've landed on the much, much bigger problem. A natural global pandemic is not actually that large of a risk, as little as 1% according to some educated estimates. But an easily modified virus that kills nearly 40% of its victims and requires up to 4 years to research and develop a treatment? Oh, that's something very different. That's biological warfare. Even moderately developed countries have the capacity to modify viruses in similar ways to what the 2014 H5N1 researchers did. A bioengineered pandemic is far more likely to occur than one that comes from nature alone. Whether done intentionally or accidentally, a modified pathogen is the real reason why scientists are so concerned. Virtually all recent outbreaks featured viruses with very specific and often small weaknesses that prevented them from becoming enormous problems. Research has repeatedly shown that it's relatively simple to modify pathogens to resolve those weaknesses. The modifications might also cause the infection to spread more easily and resist treatments, or turn relatively benign viruses into things that could make 1918 look like an ingrown toenail. Former CDC Director Julie Gerberding said in 2005, "The technical obstacles are really trivial. What's difficult is the distribution of agents in ways that would bypass our capacity to recognize and intervene effectively. So, it appears that we're extremely reliant on international policing to keep the worst-case scenario at bay. Perhaps, thankfully, nobody's extremely forthcoming about what exactly that means in real terms. But the amount of stuff that routinely slips past international agencies isn't exactly a ringing endorsement." Technology has upsides too, though. Modern computational power allows accurate diagnoses in a matter of hours versus several months or even years a century ago. Worldwide communication happens in seconds, and a researcher in Tokyo can know everything that a colleague in London knows in almost real time. That's an enormous difference that probably would have reduced the Spanish flu's overall impact exponentially, and it may be what saves us when push comes to shove. Global communication is widely viewed as being one of the most valuable tools for mitigating viral outbreaks. Even an engineered airborne pandemic would have a tougher time taking worldwide hold in 2018, perhaps offering enough time to produce a treatment. Maybe that, plus international watchdogs, are enough to allow humankind to avoid the deaths of millions or even more. It's far from perfect, but it's really all we have. So, is that enough security for you? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this video, lay a lickin' on the old like button below, and subscribe for more from the WildAC channel. Thanks for watching.